It's time to begin the Budget and Finance Committee meeting for 2/12/2015. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from January the 8th, 2015. Hope everyone's had a chance to read those. Any additions, deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
And I second that.
Proper motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Second item on the agenda, budget presentation, Parks Department. Parks Department, you're up.
As they're coming up, I'd like to just make a couple opening comments.
Okay.
It's a little bit like opening day. We're getting ready to go through budgets, and the next 3 months, you're going to have each department, over the next 3 months, you'll have each department come before you, just like we've done over the last 6 years. And this is your opportunity to hear from them in terms of where they are in their budget, what they see as needs in terms of their service to the community. And so this is the time for them to be heard, and Lisa and her team are coming up to do that. We always are glad to provide that opportunity. It's always very helpful. It helps us in formulating the budget to hear from you as we talk through all of this. And of course, this all drives towards around the first part of May when we deliver the city administrator's recommended budget to you that processes all this. But you're sort of getting it all unedited directly from the departments in terms of what they see as needs and opportunities. You will notice we've changed a few things this year compared to past years. We've structured it a little bit differently. We've added a little bit to our budget team. Michael Walters-Young, who you've met on some other topics, one of his areas of expertise is budget work. He's done it for a while, 15, 16, 17 years, something like that, in a number of different communities. And so we're tapping into that expertise along with the rest of our finance team, Russ and Mike, and the folks that help us in the departments as well. So I'll let Michael talk a little bit about some of those structural changes in terms of how we're putting together the information and showing it to you, and then we'll turn the department loose. So, Michael, take it away.
Good afternoon, Alderman. My name is Michael Walters-Young. I'm your Business Process Improvement Manager, and as Eric said, we've added and amended a few things to your budget presentation this year. For all budgets moving forward, as you have today, you have 3 components for each department. You have a PowerPoint, which will be the chief presentation document, which all departments will use. These are going to range between 9 and 17 or 18 slides, probably for every department moving forward, but as a way to simply sort of keep the focus on the most critical pieces of information, changes, and what the department does, how it's laid out, etc. You have a detailed budget, which is the second packet. This is really sort of what the final product will look like come in May. In it, you have the mission, you have goals, you have objectives, you have the performance measures. Part of the initiatives and efforts that we've been working on for the last really several years here in the city of Franklin have been to try to integrate Franklin Forward, your strategic plan, into day-to-day operations. This is another example of how that works. And so the performance measures are laid out in workload, efficiency, and outcome measures, and then have tie-ins back to Franklin Forward where applicable. You've got the organization chart for the department. You have a 5-year staffing history of full-time and part-time individuals, so you can start to see trends on how many people have been authorized year over year. And then you have the budget detail rolled up first on one page, a budget summary page, and then you have the detail from Forecaster, or in the case of the police department, just from Excel, because we're making a few changes to that budget this year. And then the third aspect of change is you have a packet called a program enhancement summary. The biggest single difference this year in doing budgeting in the city of Franklin is we wanted departments to create a base budget or a level service budget. That is, what amount of resources do departments need next year to provide the same level of service this year? Anything else, new pieces of equipment, new capital, new people, truly new people, not already budgeted, but new personnel, they had to fill out a one-page form, which have been summarized, and then all of that detail is provided for here. So you can get to see exactly what the asks are to add on. These are things as wide varied as Lisa and her team will go through in a minute. from, environmental and pavilion projects at Bicentennial Park to simply buying a chemical sprayer. So they vary vastly in size, quantity, shape, and design. But the goal is that you can see very clearly what the additional possibilities are versus what you need just to maintain your operations. We are here, the entire finance team, to help answer any questions as you go through this process in the next 4 months. And it starts with the individual departments. Ms. Clayton.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just going to kind of lead off, and other directors will do the same. Michael has been a great addition. I met Russ's team, and everybody who's played a part in it has done a fantastic job. And I believe what you will see is you'll see a little bit more across the board of the way things look. It'll be a little bit more tailored, and so hopefully it'll be able to ask questions as we go through. There's a lot that we're going to throw at you tonight, this afternoon, as you're going to hear from even from other departments. So we'll go ahead and kind of get started and just kind of run through. Let me make sure, is it that one straight ahead? That's it. So who I have with me today is I have Paige Cruz, who is our Parks and Recreation Superintendent, who's over all of our programming and athletics facilities that we have. And then I also have Kevin Lindsay to my left, who is over all of our facilities and maintenance within. He also does a lot of the planning within our department, along with our working with the Planning Commission as far as that overall team with planning of our DRT. And so heavily involved within the development community as far as Parks and Recreation is concerned. What we'll do is outline for you today is the purpose of the department, an organizational chart. We'll kind of outline a base budget that will help you kind of navigate through our papers today. As we're going to look at 3 categories of personnel, operations, and capital. And then the new part that what we're talking about is the program enhancements. That's where you're going to see the new ask, the new requests that are going to come through each department, and including parks, and then just a quick summary of kind of where we are. And we'll be able to answer any of those questions as we kind of go through. As far as the purpose of our department, and this is just an overall statement, and we've had a wonderful, in 2014 we had a wonderful year, and parks has been a little bit more in the forefront for us as far as partnerships and that type of thing within our community. But I truly believe the goal of the Franklin Parks Department is to provide a diverse and high-quality system of parks, recreation and facilities in public open space that will meet the recreation and leisure needs of the residents and visitors population, and that will protect and enhance the environmental and historical character of the city of Franklin. So you lump all of the things that we do. We do enjoy what we do, and especially being such a part of the quality of life within the city of Franklin and the fabric of that. The next slide is our organizational chart. We have 7 divisions within the Parks Department. You have administration. Under the scope of, with Paige, under the Parks and Recreation standpoint, you have athletics as well as the maintenance and programs underneath those programs, and then you also have programming, which is a lot of our special events that you see and partake within the city. Whether we're doing them or someone from the outside and within our community or visitors take part. You have this, under the facility superintendent's leadership, you have maintenance and facilities. Maintenance, of course, takes care of all of our maintenance facilities. We have over 30 facilities, and we maintain hands-on every week over 365 acres. So from the cleanliness of the parks, the trash, the restrooms, all of those things under the facility scope, along with our inventory. Is that under Kevin? This is under Kevin. Okay. And then we also have, from the maintenance side of things, is that's what they maintain. And then the facility side, again, is all the cleaning supplies, inventory, you name it's underneath there. Underneath the what we consider urban forestry within the department is our city arborist, is housed within the Parks Department, and we're also operating a part-time tree crew that works mainly, instead of just in parks, is on the city right-of-ways. We work with the street department to, which is the trimming, the pruning, and maintaining of the street trees that we have.
Who does that?
That is under the city arborist.
Okay, is that the tree worker?
That's the tree workers,
Okay.
uh-huh. Yes, ma'am.
Part-time.
Part-time
We're looking
workers.
at that part-time, 3.
There's 3 of them, correct,
And a full-time arborist.
and a full-time arborist. And then, under the grounds and landscaping foreman, you have the 2 divisions of grounds, which is all of our mowing crews, and then you have the landscaping, that just nothing but landscaping. So 7 divisions overall.
Who is that foreman?
The foreman is Brian Walker, underneath the grounds. And of course, Todd Snackenberg being the arborist.
So now, so you don't do any of the soccer fields, though?
No, sir, that's
County
county.
does those.
Right. You have,
You're, say, Jim Warren,
Jim Warren.
Pinkerton. What about Pinkerton?
yes, sir, we maintain
Even though
all.
the county runs the
They-
program, I don't want to say they run the program, they schedule the adult softball there. We maintain the grounds.
Correct, but we also do, and Paige can speak to this, they do the weekly adult athletic programs, and then we do tournaments on the weekends.
So they don't do the
So they
tournament.
don't do the tournaments, we do the tournaments. Now, it doesn't mean they couldn't do a tournament, but mainly we do the private tournaments.
So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I'll give you $1,000, I want the fields for the weekend, I want to put on a tournament, I want to get the money from the concessions, I want to get the money from the sale of T-shirts, hats, whatever, they go through you, Paige, okay? How many times do you have that?
A lot right now. We have 15, right at 15 right now on the books for 2015.
For
For tournaments.
adult
Just tournaments.
softball tournaments
One
on the
days.
weekend.
One
Correct.
day, some 2 days.
And we also work with county on the Senior Olympics that you
Okay.
hear every year. So we do that portion with them. So that's Fieldstone, unlike the other athletic programs that we have. So that kind of takes you as far as the personnel that we have and how we operate those divisions underneath. Basically, you have a superintendent or a foreman within a division, and then they also have crew chiefs who are in the field working day to day with those crews, and then you have the workers, or our team, part of our women and men that are in the field doing the work, and a wide variety of what we do. So, continue on with personnel. What you have within personnel that we have is our base budget of this fiscal year that we're in currently in 2015. We had a budget of $2.2 million as far as our personnel costs, and that included salaries. We have 3 different types of personnel within our department. You have a full-time person, full-time employee. You have what we call a part-time employee, and those employees without benefits that work 3 to 3.5 days a week. And so they're set schedule, but they do not receive benefits. And then we have what we call seasonal employees. We have over 18 seasonal employees. That's where they come in, our seasons start by around March, and they go through the end of after Thanksgiving. From all the different divisions that we have, we include those seasonal, and that's 1,500 hours. Depending on the job description, depends on their base salary. But that's 1,500 hours only. Per person.
Per person.
Per person, and usually it's a 40-hour work week. So during that time frame, that's how we're able to accomplish what we accomplished.
March through.
Usually through the end of after Thanksgiving, toward the end of November. Correct.
So the determination for seasonal isn't 30 hours or less per week, it's 1,500 hours for the year.
Correct. There is a difference between what you're going to hear in city departments is part-time compared to seasonal.
Okay.
And but seasonal is 1,500 hours.
And part-time is,
Part-time is usually, it's around 27 and a half hours, but we do 24.
less than
Less
30 a
than
week.
30, uh-huh.
But you could do 52 weeks.
They'll last through the year, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, throughout the year.
Seasonal is set out by Fair Labor Standards, that it has to be an increase in the market time. Usually parks or landscaping are about the only ones
Can do that. Okay.
that's not the only ones that qualify.
Thank you. So it's important when we're beginning to go through is when we're talking about seasonal compared to part-time compared to full-time.
Yeah,
Of what
I
we're
think
talking
that's-
about. So in the personnel, continue on with some of the base pay of 2016 and some of the benefits that, from a standpoint within the PowerPoint, we did not have all of the figures at that time, so it's a little bit lower. But so you're looking at, if we only stayed the same, you're looking at still that base staying the same. But what we're doing is requesting 10 additional. What you will see is requests include full-time requests, part-time requests, reclassifications of a couple of part-time employees, and additional seasonal workers in order to make this year. And I will get into detail here shortly when we get into the enhancements of what those will be, is because of what you will see is with the multipurpose arena coming on board at Harlansdale. We're looking, if we continue on the path with Carter's Hill Park, that's 20 acres of a new additional for the historic park. You're also looking at, we're also doing Bicentennial, starting to look at how Bicentennial is going to be improved, and we're doing improvements this fiscal year in maintaining that property, and just an increase that we're seeing in special events and tournaments, the amount of work that is needed within the park system. So I'll go into detail here shortly on what those personnel requests will be. The operations, the base for operations, parks received almost 1.5 million in operations of fiscal year. We'll see an increase in base pay with that of a requesting of close to 1.7. It's 1.6 million. And that's the reason for those increases is personnel expenses of new and existing, replacement of existing operational devices. What I mean by that is a lot of your radios and the things that cost the devices that we have within our trucks and our facilities that we have, the replacement of those. Many of those we've reached that capacity of 8 to 10 years. Increase in existing contract services. We have a lot of services from Centos to all of the termite inspections services that we have, all of our facilities sprayed, to several different types of contract services. And then additional services such as special events and the land that we are going to be requested to maintain or serve. That is for the reason of that. So that would be for your operational. The next slide goes into capital. The capital received and what you see within the PowerPoint are not the only projects that receive funding. Part of this is we took a look at overall capital of hotel motel, is such as the 250 that was included in for this the one-time historical with the battlefield. For the grants and that type of thing, the 250 that was allocated. But we did have money set aside for the historic Hayes home. That was the mechanical and electrical plumbing and the design that we have completed.
How much again?
For
the Hayes house?
For the Hayes home, we spent last year, let me go down through here, in the Hayes home last year, let me pull up the hotel motel.
Well, you can get to that sometime.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to interrupt your presentation that much.
No, not at all. Not at all. For the Hayes home, we had $150,000 toward
Has
it.
already been spent
That is currently in this fiscal year.
in this coming fiscal year.
In this fiscal year, we have in
2015.
2015. So that's in the
From
current.
hotel motel.
From hotel motel.
funds.
Okay.
So,
That's trying to complete the plumbing and the electrical.
So that's ongoing. I
that's
mean,
ongoing right now.
Right now.
What,
The roof and stuff is stabilized, whatever we wanted to stabilize. So now we're looking at another $150,000 going into plumbing and electrical.
that's what you have right now, that you had allocated last year. The program enhancement, you will hear shortly of what that will cost to finish that project. But that is what you have in this, that you had approved in this current fiscal year. You also had Eastern Flank. We did the construction and also some trail removal and improvements of that area. We also did with special events and that type of thing, but we did the reconstruction of the kitchen, the facility itself, and we did most of all of that work internally. But
And
we
that's
utilized
done.
that, most of that internally for the, inside the facility is, and we're still doing some on the outside of the construction. And you'll hear a program enhancement here shortly for that. Of course, the Harlansdale, the multipurpose arena, of some of the work that we had allocated, the 200,000 this fiscal year to go toward the multipurpose arena. That is for design and construction of the restroom facilities on that site. So that is our contribution to what the Friends of Franklin Parks is doing on that site. And then we also had money in the budget this fiscal year for Bicentennial Park, and that is for the roof improvement.
Now, is that on just the metal frame that's down there now, or is that?
Yes, sir, that's looking, trying to dry in. We'll start at the top and work our way down, try to dry everything in. Working with Brad Wilson on what the best remedy is to dry where the two buildings meet together. There's a valley there, we're looking at that. Putting gutters on the whole thing, maybe improving some of the skylights so that we have natural light coming in. All that should be completed by July 1st.
So what you will see here shortly in the new fiscal year that we'll be requesting is, with the program enhancements of capital, again, is with Harlansdale. You'll see some with Carter's Hill Park, Bicentennial, Eastern Flank, and even some connections of greenways. Carter's Hill is currently private, but it is in the works to come before the board from Franklin Stars.
That's the proposal you got in the fall. You may remember Julian Bibb and Mary Pierce and Robert Hicks being here talking about the ability to get that last piece plus the other properties that have been acquired over time and consolidate that essentially into a
Yes,
20-acre
all of
battlefield, central battlefield park, if you will, around Carter House. So we're still working through that with them, and we'll bring to you, before we release the budget, a more detailed discussion so that we can get some board direction and know how to make the budget work with what your direction is. So I don't have a date exactly when that'll come back to you, but there'll be some additional discussion around how that would work. And again, the concept they talk about is the city being in the operational or maintenance side, and they would work through and fund the interpretive components, including a reconstruction of the cotton gin and that kind of stuff. It happens on the private side, but we would end up being the operator and maintainer of that park site. So we're working through what's involved in that. They've made an ask on the capital side, but it has obviously implications on how we would operate and maintain a park like that.
So who owns it?
Right now, it's largely owned by the Battlefield Trust, those groups. We own a portion.
We own, of course, where the Pizza Hut.
Yeah, where the Pizza Hut was
The
and-
salt, that's
yeah.
all we own right now.
So this would join that, add the flower shop property that they've got under contract, and then the idea would be that 20-acre consolidated Carter's Hill Battlefield Park. So that still is being evaluated, and we're going to come back to you in the next couple months to bring that back and get more feedback and direction.
Whenever we take over, if that's the right word, the maintenance of that, would we have ownership of
We
that?
would become the owner of that park site.
Okay.
Yes, that's the concept
Right.
that has at least been put out at this point.
Right, so is Eric was saying, I mean, the timing of it is we're trying to project what we believe is going to take place by the concept plan that they have developed in our meetings with them. But it is our hopes, before this is finalized, is what is that detail and what that level, and it will fluctuate, we believe.
So they're telling you that they'll have the flower shop acquisition done, and the house next to it, and the Domino's property will be cleared off also.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, the concept, as we understand it, is they finished the acquisition, and they've got that property, the flower shop property, under contract, and they've got to raise their money and have that financed by, I think, sometime in May. And they would handle the demolition, and then we would take over maintenance of the park facility and ownership. So we'll bring that back to you in more detail. We're working through what that means to us and where they are with what their ask is, both on the capital side and what this means for us to operate it.
And Green Rate enhancement, can you talk a little bit about that, or is that coming?
It's coming.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to. So that's a great segue. Thank you, Ms. Brown. So let's talk about the, if you will, in your packet, because of the manner in which everything is this year, any new request is now made within. So I think I'd like to explain this just quickly, and this is what you have in front of you, is the Parks team went through all of the requests that we believe that we will need for this next fiscal year. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the projects in which, or property that, if all comes through fruition, that we would take over and maintain and operate. So what you have before you, before we start, is we have different categories because we have different funding mechanisms that we work from. The different categories, what I mean by that is you have the general fund that most of our operations come from, correct. We also operate out of a tree fund, that the city arborist and the tree commission work through, that we have funding. There is a hotel motel tax that we work from. If needed, in the past, we have worked from facilities tax, and then we also have parkland dedication. So what we did is we took a look at what our priorities are. Our priorities are, if you look at the general fund and the priority ranking, you will see that 1 through, ever how many? 32.
32.
Thanks. And what's included in that is from personnel, equipment, and projects. So that's what that ends up being. If you'll see, that's where those line up. If we said that we were going to look at the tree fund for something, you will see a number 1 beside that. It's still the same out of a category, but you can see where we may be asking you to think outside the box of maybe a different funding mechanism that might be able to fund that particular enhancement. So that would be our number 1 ask right beside that. The same thing for the other categories.
Is that because there might not be enough money in the general fund so we could get it from the tree fund?
Well, that is what we're proposing.
Okay.
That would be, to where it gives us some flexibility is how we're going to propose it this evening. So we're going straight into the enhancements. What you have is our number 1 is, our number 1 through number 9 is personnel. One of the things that we have is from a personnel is right now we have 3 part-time tree workers. We have over 8 different subdivisions that's currently, that we work with our city arborists that we've identified through public safety of fire, of having to go through, but also with sanitation, of where there's limitations of from site, also from where the trucks go in. And so you got a tree canopy that's mature tree canopies. What's been requested of us is 3 days a week, we're going into these neighborhoods and we're trimming, from pruning around the street signs, the lights, we did it on Royal Oaks with Street Department yesterday, on all of the red lights and everything. So what we are requesting is to take a look at reclassifying 2 of those workers to full-time positions. We have over $200,000 in the tree funding. Now, that's an ordinance right now. That particular, the way that tree bank works is it's only on new, it's put in, it's a fee in lieu of from the development community, but it's only utilized for new trees and not for maintenance of it once you plant. Now, what we've been able to do, though, is if we do a contract, then we've been able to pay someone to maintain it for, such as watering and that type of thing, for up to 2 to 3 years and pay it out of that fund. What we suggested last month to the Tree Commission is it works well, and over the years it's worked well to plant trees, but if the HOA is not maintaining them, we have this huge amount of tree canopy And the complaints from our customer services coming in, that all of our signs are blocked, red lights, even with our city vehicles going through, we've got to clear them. So we're going out and doing that, but we are so behind the curve that we believe if we funded the rest of that, 2 positions, we'd have 40-hour work week. That's all that they would do. And so it's a lot of times it's working street trees. It's not about just working in the parks. We're talking about city streets. And so our suggestion would be is to maybe look at bringing that before the board to follow this process with the budget, that if we were to amend the tree ordinance, am I saying that correct, with the ordinance, then we would look that the tree commission said up to, not to exceed 20,000, which would be able to pay for the additional amount, the difference than what we're paying out of the general fund for that.
So you would not have the contract, you wouldn't contract anything out?
Unless
for
it's
that?
something that's something major we couldn't do. The thing is over the last 4 years to 5 years, been very gracious to fund equipment. We just don't have the personnel.
So what we would do is bring this to you for some discussion and feedback, guidance about whether you want to make this adjustment so that we can budget in line with that as well. So actually, at your next work session, we'll probably have our first discussion about that. It's been to the Tree Commission. They've made a recommendation for the board to consider, and then we want to just bring that to you for some discussion at your next meeting. But we want to do that far enough in advance in developing the budget that we kind of know where the board is on that, so we can decide if that's an option for funding this,
Yeah, or
or
not.
if we need to adjust our priorities and possible funding sources for this item. So,
Well, I think you all are the ones that know what's best. I mean, if you think that's best, then I would certainly be.
well, we want to be striking the balance of
Yeah.
planting and what we do in terms of the urban forestry, but then as we look at it and we grow, we do have a maintenance need. So this is somewhere around 30% is what they had identified, 30%, but no more than $20,000, some sort of structure like that, 30 or 35%, I don't remember which one. But we'll talk about that a little more and get some guidance from the full board about if that's where you want to go, and we'll have that issue kind of resolved before we put a recommended budget before you.
Well, I guess, for the lack of a better question, help me understand why what you just described is not a streets department function. If you're going into the street and you're trimming an overhead tree and a canopy and a stop sign and a traffic signal, how did that default back to the Parks Department?
Well, over the few years, we both had to work together. And so usually the arborist was one of those people who actually went out because of his expertise and the proper prunings or that type thing, have worked with them. Well, it just kind of evolved. And so I think it could go either way. The thing is that we're trying to identify whether it's in streets or it's in parks. We are really behind the curve in our maintenance. Right now, with any new development, we're trying to put it into where the HOA takes care of it. But there are years upon years that we did not do that. So I think that's definitely a discussion we could have, whether it falls within one or the other.
Yeah, at this point, the way we're organized, the expertise is in the Parks Department.
The
So they
arbor-
coordinate
the
together.
arborist.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't have streets out there cutting trees and Lisa's folks out there cutting trees. They coordinate, and our arborist and the tree crews do that work.
Well, I assume that.
Right.
But what I was just, the.
But you can classify it either
classify
way.
it either
The
way.
scenario that I just gave you was it would appear that that would be a streets issue if streets is out looking at stop signs and red lights and putting in new signalization and whatever they're putting in. The other thing that I would say to you is that I think it's very important that the HOAs do as much as they possibly can. I see my HOA I'm bragging on them. They're there every day, trimming, setting up flowers, cutting bushes, trimming back brush in front of the stop signs, that whole 9 yards. So it's not an issue. It's not an issue in some neighborhoods.
Exactly.
It may be an issue in others, but it is not an issue in our neighborhood or my neighborhood.
How much HOA you pay? But that's a different question.
It is in West Haven. I know I've called Joe several times when the oak trees would cover the sign, and that's dangerous.
I mean, if you look back about 10 years ago, usually a lot of them, unless they've already had something established or they took it upon themselves to do an HOA, you had a lot of, they went ahead and kind of self-policed themselves, you know, that type of maintenance. But a lot of them do not. McKay's Mill is one. We've been, along with the street department, it took over a month and a half to do everything to trim around every street light. They're in the right-of-ways. And so we've tried to collectively, we did it as a partnership with the other department. But I think it's just about bringing awareness. Where it lands, I think Joe and I are in agreement. We just need to make sure something is in place.
Have you looked at the cost, the contractual workers doing that?
Correct.
The cost benefit of
Yeah, the benefit
not
is
or
by us doing it, we can always do it cheaper.
Right.
But at the same time, there are times that you still have to have contracted work just because of the level of service
Yeah.
that it's, you know, a large tree or if there's a specialty around power lines. They have the larger equipment or the expertise to do it.
Because what I'm hearing is we will not take away contract. It may limit it to a certain.
Oh, absolutely. I think you would
Yeah.
always still have some contractual work in the city.
It's important for us to kind of know.
And we're also being proactive with the with planning department as well as with the city arborists, is we are speaking with HOAs, consider taking on that maintenance. But we've had quite a few to say, no, we'd rather you not. We'd rather not. Because it is a fee.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If they can get the city to take it on at the overall taxpayer expense, that's less HOA fees that they're actually paying. So, yeah, if there's an HOA out there that's doing the vast majority of it, and there's an HOA that's doing relatively little, that person that's in that HOA relatively little is paying much less HOA fees or getting less benefit from whatever he or she is paying than the person who is on the other end of that spectrum. And I'm sitting here listening to that because I can't imagine, I think that, I must carefully phrase this. I think we need to be as proactive as possible to make sure that the HOAs understand their responsibility when they're out planting trees and doing whatever they're doing, and they're not maintaining their portion of it, or they're trimming their right-of-ways or their grass or whatever there's in the commons area, whatever it is. As far as whether it's in streets or in parks or it's a combination, I think, Eric, you have to look at that and make that determination. I personally really don't care. It gets done one way or the other. I just thought when you said that, what you said, it just popped up that parks is maintaining the streets. And I just thought that was a little bit unusual that we were doing it that way. But that's fine. If it works, it works. I don't really care.
It truly has been a joint effort between the two departments. So
you're working on that dead tree then that's down at the around Centennial. So you're the one that said when it dries up.
thank you, we're on it.
When it dries up, we're gonna cut that.
As part of the trail, so that I can say it on the record, as part of the trail system that's going to be coming through, that we've rebid, that's part all of that will be taken care of.
Oh, okay.
We're on it. Thank you for reminding us. Quickly, because I know we're on a time. The rest of the personnel, what you're seeing is from the athletic and grounds on the program enhancements, what you see is athletic, grounds, facilities, and maintenance. A lot of these have to do with the new properties or the facilities that we're enhancing on the park property, such as the multipurpose arena is a huge part that's coming on.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about operating, we have events every single weekend, starting toward the end of March through the end of November.
Using that facility.
Using that facility, or we're using Bicentennial, or we've got Jim Warren going. But when we're talking about for our full-time athletics and grounds, they're going to be also we're really talking about maintaining those properties and what's going to be surrounded by them. So that's kind of where that's come in. The maintenance worker position, when you come down to number 5, it is.
Lisa, do you
I'm sorry.
include overtime for those, because those events are on the weekends? So do you include overtime in your budget, or do you?
We do.
We do.
Okay.
Absolutely. The maintenance, we only have 3 full-time positions. As we've grown, they also do all of the maintenance. So what we're being able to do is we just cannot maintain in an efficient manner. So having an extra person to where you almost have 2 small crews going out just seems to make more sense for us. Then what you have is some part-time and seasonal positions. Seasonal positions really is about working those weekends, working those events, and being there when we need them. And this is on the athletic side of Jim Warren, Fieldstone, but also the multi-purpose arena. Program specialist, also the same thing. Eastern Flank has just grown an enormous amount with how many events we have in that facility. From weddings to school groups to business organizations use it. We have it used every week, but almost every weekend it's utilized. So we're talking about now that we believe we've taken in
True revenue for 2014 was $15,300. That doesn't include deposits or app fees. That's right there is just true revenue, outside staffing
And we're looking
fees.
to increase.
Oh, yes, we
Correct.
haven't even marketed it on our
It's not
end.
been marketed correctly.
Great.
So you can imagine what it will be. So we're suggesting that let's look at a part-time position, and that's all that they do is Eastern Flank and events out there.
Wow.
And then facilities work, again, with all of the new facilities or land that we're obtaining. Then you get into the program enhancement. I really want to get into from the top 10 is the Aspen Grove, the trail connection. Where you have a disconnect in our trail connections right now is what you have from Aspen Grove Park behind NHC. Am I saying that correctly?
I was at PFK, but right now.
Yes. Going across the street of Aspen Grove.
Okay.
It goes out about a half of a mile. Where the engineering department was able to do the multipurpose trail system on Matt Catcher, we have, under the bridge and up to the trailhead, we have a connection. We need that missing piece. And so what we are suggesting and what we've heard from the surveys that from our master plan, which you're going to receive a lot of that in the next upcoming months of what the valid statistical survey and what come out. But our number 1 priority that we heard from the general public and we see is connectivity. That is a missing piece within our greenway system that we can point to today and say that's what we need to. So when we say that we looked at number prioritization of parkland dedication, we would say most likely you might want to look at where the first funding project would come out of that.
So if we also did the sidewalk on 96 East, then we would connect theoretically, you would connect from downtown to P.F. Chang.
Absolutely. We also have connections at Harlansdale and things that are coming down the pipe in this calendar year and in next fiscal year. So yes, the goal has always been to be from Cool Springs to downtown.
To
Franklin.
downtown.
Then you take a look in the future, where do we need to spawn off of that, off of our river or tributaries?
To make the connections.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that's where you see that if our number 1 is in parkland dedication, would be that. The second area would be Pinkerton Park, the pedestrian bridge. We need to replace the wood on that bridge.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we're
Replace the what?
the wood, the surface wood. It's begun to splinter. It's become a safety issue. So, but it's weathered well. It's weathered well. But we're on. We're over 10 years on that bridge. And then Eastern Flank, what you see there with the wall completion is we have started the project with a event space, which is outside the event space. A 300 by 100 tent can actually be placed a 30 by 100 tent can be placed in the area. But it's also for interpretation. It also is part of the master plan. You funded half of that project. We're just asking you to fund the rest of it, and we'll finish it. And then Bicentennial Pavilion area, the environmental, and let's complete that area so that our community can use it. We've got some work to do on that pavilion, and we need to finish up its floodway, and we need to figure out what kind of surfacing it is. So,
So does the dedication, the presentation from the group the other night about all the little piece of property out on Columbia Highway, they want to give that. Then they still were willing to give the $500-something thousand. Part of that could be used in the environmental portion of the area that you're talking about.
It could be, yeah, in any of those areas. We're looking at areas around the Harpeth Square development. So that could be Bicentennial Park.
Because that's,
The
they're
pavilion at
going
Bicentennial
to
Park.
earmark 300,000.
The Riverwalk area or concept, you know, they're, all those are eligible things to look at. We need to kind of hone in on what we think is going to be the most beneficial.
and that's where you see that would be number 2 under parkland dedication. If we looked at an alternative funding source outside of hotel, motel, or general fund. And then I think from that standpoint, you're also looking at then the Hayes Home. To finish some of the projects that we have at Harlansdale, you've got the Hayes Home to complete, we've got the barn to work toward. The issues we're having is the community wants to be able to utilize, you've got the Pilgrimage Festivals, you've got the Americana, you've got now the multipurpose arena. We don't have any offices on site. We do not have the equipment like fire suppression, having those things completed within even the barn to where it's a public space that you can even rent. So there's opportunity that it's open for our community, but it's also a rental opportunity. And so that's what you see in finishing some of these projects and then some of the equipment that's down through the enhancements.
That site may potentially need a full-time program manager.
We believe once it is complete, you're exactly right. Yes, ma'am.
What about your restrooms? Where are they?
The restrooms at Harlansdale, they're being funded in this fiscal year currently. So
Within the
they're
capital budget.
within the capital budget.
So how long will it take to get those?
They have been designed through the Friends of Franklin Park, so they are going to start construction. It's just as soon as weather is allowing and
It's
permitting.
rolled into the construction project for the multipurpose equestrian arena. The restrooms are happening with that project.
Because
we just
that
can't
won't
have
work
anything.
without them.
Yeah,
Oh.
and we just, originally, we talked about the city just doing that, but it made more sense to just
Yeah.
roll it all together
Sure.
into one project.
So it'll all be one.
Yeah.
Those restroom facilities will be incorporated with the concession stand and the ticketing booth as you come out the backside of the barn, across the interurban, where we had our stage set up for the groundbreaking. It'll be located in that area. That's your entryway to come in to the main area, so you have to pass right through it. That makes sense.
So we have multiple enhancements of some equipment that we're going to do, from replacement, some of equipment, but even trucks. But what you see on the enhancements is when you look at personnel, and the important thing is to see that if we are requesting personnel, here's what is needed for that person. Here's from uniforms to the equipment they're going to use to day-to-day operations. This is what it's going to take. So we've included that. That's the reason you see the fee from those particular enhancements. It's not about just personnel cost. It's about what's it going to take that we normally do for a full-time or a part-time or a seasonal person. And so we're happy to answer any questions. I can go to the summary.
Yeah. Yeah.
One, but it is, we continue to grow in operations. We will be proposing by the new fiscal year a new fee schedule for our facilities because of the enhancements and what we have seen as far as these large signature events that are coming in. We will continue the partnerships, the public-private partnerships for the new fiscal year, and in our hopes within the new fiscal year that you will have a 10-year parks master plan that actually gives us all a true roadmap of projects and where we need to head and where our community believes we need to go. So, thank you for your time.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Lisa and her team?
Thanks, Paige. Thanks, Kevin, for the work you
Think
do.
y'all are doing
You're doing a
great.
great job.
Just a great job.
Lisa,
Yes,
one
sir.
thing on page 3,
Oh.
help me understand. of the operating budget request on page 3 at the bottom. Cost per Franklin resident support parts. In 2012, we're showing 1064. In 2013, 1141. Are you with me? On
Yes,
page
sir.
3 at the bottom. And then highlighted, we come out in 2015 to come to $50.12. And $50.12 in 2016.
That's a formula error in that spreadsheet, which we are working through.
All right.
You know, there's not a significant increase in the amount that it cost. In integrating all the performance measures, we drew data from various places. So we need to, the reason why it's actually highlighted is because we need to take a look at those specific numbers prior to the budget being finalized come the 1st of May.
So it's likely to be more in line with the.
More than likely,
Correct.
more than likely 13 bucks or
Yes.
something.
Somewhere around there.
Correct, correct.
Those numbers, though, I saw them before it came out of this. Those, that we mentioned the other day, $40 a household. I don't think that's right. That was just mentioned somewhere in the
We'll definitely go back and take a look at all the numbers.
Take a look at those in.
Yep.
I just happened, I was looking through those today and said, is there something I'm not seeing, or am I seeing actually what's there? So that's not correct.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It may be worth mentioning that a lot of these year-to-date numbers and estimations that we have for the end of this year are based on data that was needed through November or December, because this is kind of early for us to be working on the budget. So some of these numbers are going to be updated as we go along.
Thank you. Sanitation and environmental services. Do you need your compadres up here with you? I think we probably do.
We like looking at
I think
them.
they need to be seen,
Yeah.
and the public then knows who they can call upon, and if they go to the front door, they recognize them. I recognize either one of them at my front door or back door, either one.
And also know who's doing a great,
Thank you.
Yes,
And besides, they're all pretty.
yes.
Oh, thank you.
and they're doing a great job for our community.
Thank you. And thank you all for allowing us to present to you this afternoon. What you're going to hear is about our budget. It's going to follow a similar format to what Lisa's just presented you. But there will be a section in the middle that I turn over to Michael that will be more of an explanation based on what you've continually heard from them regarding comptroller changes and accounting changes that are required. So that'll be one difference that you'll see.
Because of the separate fund, the sanitation
separate,
and
yes,
environment,
because it's-
sanitation fund.
Because we're considered a special fund or a separate fund from the general fund, very similar to the water management funds that you manage, or that you learn about and talk about from Mark Hilty's group or his team. That's similar to why you'll see something different here. We're going to go through the purpose of the department. We're going to talk about the organizational chart. Very same format as what Lisa has just presented. We do not have anything in the capital section, so that part you don't see here. And then we'll summarize at the end. So our mission, as it has been for several years, is to provide the citizens of Franklin effective and efficient solid waste services in an environmentally and economically responsible manner. And I'll tell you that over the past 5 years, we've worked hard to increase our efficiency, use the resources we have to provide additional services that have been either requested or that we see are a need for the community. Overall, we protect public health, we collect waste from residences and businesses, we operate our transfer station that processes waste from both our city trucks as well as private companies. And then we develop programs to provide needed services similar to our Blue Bag program, which was most recent, and then public education for any of the services that we provide. The organizational chart, we actually have 3 divisions now. The recycling division was rolled back into the collection division last year after the pilot program ended for the blue bag service. Basically, we just have said we have the resources in collection, and the blue bag program has been successful enough that we needed the resources in collection. So, because it was based on the day, based on the route, based on where we were. We asked to roll those back into one so that we could share the resources of both for all of our services there. Administration is basically responsible for the customer billing, working with revenue management very closely on our revenue side of the equation. The office team is considered the administration, and then we do a lot of our customer service, phone calls, two-way radio, that type thing. So that's our communication hub. Our collection division is responsible for residential and commercial services. We provide all of the collection of rollout containers, yard bags, brush, blue bags, brown trash, and bulky items. All of those services are provided to all residents every week. And then the commercial services are still our dumpsters and our rollout containers, as we've done for years. Our disposal division is our transfer station. Our volume is on target to process right at 80,000 tons this year. That's about 20,000, 25,000 more tons than we had last year.
How much?
Right at 80,000 tons.
More?
No,
So
total.
So you had a 25% increase?
We went, if you'll recall, we reduced the tip fee at our transfer station by $2 last year, brought it to $42. We have found that other facilities in South Nashville and other, even the landfill in Murfreesboro, have raised their tip fee. So we tend to be right in there, either right at the level or right below the level of our competition that's in the direct area, as well as we are in a position where we can still process more, we can, accept more waste, as well as we have 2 private haulers that have come back to us that used to be with us pre-recession.
The change came in effect because we had a surcharge when fuel prices raised above a certain level. We implemented a surcharge because of the cost that was causing the city. When fuel prices dipped below that, we removed that surcharge. So that's what Becky's referring to. That made us a little more competitive. Plus, we're pretty convenient for a lot of these folks.
And who was
that's
paying the
helped drive it.
surcharge?
Any of our users were paying.
Oh,
Anybody who
users.
came across that scale, that was
Okay.
part of that fee structure, was that additional $2. And when those gas prices went below that limit, or that level that we were showing, we reduced that cost to our customers.
So if you've got a private hauler out that's servicing Grassland, for instance, and he's got his pickup truck and he's going around, he gets a pickup load, he's coming to you rather than going to either South Nashville or a landfill in Rutherford County, or did he ever go to the county landfill?
They can go to the county landfill. Our tip fee is still right around the same as the county landfill, but the 840 has been a benefit to us based on the fact that it's just either for folks that are out in the Lewisburg Pike area or folks that are out in the Thompson Station area. They're able to get easier access to us.
Rather than going all the way, and I don't say all the way, I'm just assuming you're going.
I don't feel like it's all the way.
I'm sure you're going west, but you'd go to Pinewood Road and then back up to that. They'd come to you and pay that rather than going to the county. The county will accept Class A,
Class 1, yes, sir.
Class 1, solid waste.
But they transfer it. They immediately transfer it. They take it from their transfer station floor. Class 1 is just your standard solid waste or garbage, household garbage, and they would transfer it from their transfer station floor to a landfill. And right now theirs is going to the Camden landfill, I think.
To the what? To the
Camden.
Camden.
Where we do our thing.
No,
We go to by county landfill.
Do we want
We go to
more
Clarksville.
of that? Do we
We go to
want more
Clarksville.
people coming to pay tip? I mean, coming to deposit their?
We can
Is that
handle.
a marketing thing we want to do, or we okay with the status quo?
Here's the the balancing act
Yeah,
that we,
that's, I figured.
that we kind of play each day. You never know if anybody other than the city trucks are gonna come through the gate to cross the scale. And at the end of the day, you know what showed up, but what could Bi-County handle? Okay, well, they could handle this amount of volume, and this was kind of where we were slated or where we planned to be at the end of the day. But, oh, we got 60 more tons. Well, that's 3 more truckloads, give or take, on average. So, oh, wait, what do we do?
Yes.
So we request them to come and haul 3 more loads. But it's that question of timing. When do you know to make that call? We close at 4. We reopen at 6:30.
So you would leave that basically on your dock?
Pretty much, they take the spare trailers that we do have, we have drop trailers.
Okay.
We load it into that for the safety aspect of keeping it off the transfer station.
So then all you're waiting for is the truck to come in
Yes, sir.
and pick, not that you're leaving it on the dock to be loaded into a truck that's
already
being
loaded.
pulled in empty?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we'll let you go.
Okay, no, that's fine. You're welcome to ask questions. It doesn't bother me at all. So we are on target to process right at 80,000 tons by the end of this fiscal year, which is an increase. Here is where, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We don't go to Lewisburg now?
No, sir. Well, we go to Lewisburg for blue bags,
Okay.
but not for garbage.
what it
But not, all right.
Okay, increase.
All right. Thank you. Looking at this slide, I'm going to turn it over to Michael, and I want to stop here just for a quick second and say, this process has been, take one and pass it. This process has been very simple, very streamlined. I like it. It's a little different, but I think they've done a really good job of rolling it out and working with us to make it happen, and I want to recognize Lori as well. So we've had great help from our finance team, and we appreciate them.
Here's the short.
Thank you, Becky. We thought it's important. Sanitation Environmental Services is a little different than any of their budgets which you're going to review today because it's an independent fund. The goal is to make it a self-sufficient operation that's been a very sustained effort over the last 4 to 5 fiscal years. And so we thought it's important to, rather than sort of cursorily go over personnel on one slide and operations on one slide, we wanted to walk you through the major changes, especially because you've just heard Becky talk about how the amount of tons we're hauling is going up, and the amount of activity we're receiving is going up, and yet the budget is dropping 9%. That doesn't really compute, sort of using, as I would call it, my budgetary spidey sense. It's just, something doesn't work here. So if you look at the slides that I handed out, the new slide 5 and what's up on the screens, this is the overall budget summary for the Sanitation Environmental Services. We forecast that we came into the year with a positive balance of $405,000. We're hoping for a positive balance of $607,000 at the end of this year. Next year, we would forecast initially, and as Russ said at the end of the Parks presentation, it's still really early. It's February 12th, and so we've got a lot of factors to sort of go through and to see fuel usage and costs, additional revenues, if the increase in tipping continues, but that at the end of 16, as a base budget, we'd have a balance of $521,000. So slightly spend more than we take in, but it would assume that there would be no general fund subsidy at this point. If you go to the next slide, the reasons why it's dropping 9% on both revenues and expenses are the first 2 items in revenues. They have exact corresponding offsets in expenses. So the first is that we're not forecasting any grants. In the 15 budget, there was a $350,000 grant to aid us in the construction of a household hazardous waste facility. If you remember, those bids came in. They were I would say, significantly higher than we anticipated. So the plan is to return the grant, or a portion of that grant, and then not do the project. When you go from 15 to 16, that revenue will no longer be there, but correspondingly in capital, there won't be an expense. So if you follow the line, $350,000 in revenues goes away, but so does $350,000 worth of expenses. The second and most significant adjustment, historically, and we would argue properly, when you budget something and it's a revenue, you take in all of your revenues and you list it as a revenue. And if you're being charged an expense, you count it as an expense. We charged ourselves a tipping fee for the disposal of city trash. So we recorded it as a revenue and we showed it as an expense. The state has decided to advise us not to do that anymore and to net out the expense in revenues. Meaning that we have a net revenue number, which is just the tipping fees coming from external sources, in other words, not city departments, and no expense. It's the exact same on the bottom line at the end of the day, in terms of the revenues that we receive and the expenses which we incur, but from a budget to budget, it makes these numbers look rather funky, to use a technical term. To that end, wax off, the final slide, slide 7, shows what the real sort of revenue and expense changes are that you should focus on. We would forecast that revenues would go up about $800,000. We are seeing increased volume and disposal overall, and we've got increases in tipping based upon the nearly 20,000 additional tons that we're receiving primarily from private haulers. We have a slight decrease in other revenues because we had a budget of receiving $140,000 in the sale of surplus assets this year, and we're forecasting that to be closer to $80,000, which is more in line with historic averages. On the expense side, we're going up about $110,000 in personnel. That is primarily due to forecast healthcare increases. Initial estimates, and again, it's February 12th, these are very initial estimates. You'll see this in all departments. We're forecasting between 8 and 10% for healthcare increases. We're budgeting 10. We'll always budget more conservative. $534,000 of additional costs for the landfill and disposal as a result of the added tonnage. But there's a virtually offsetting revenue up above. A decrease in the repair and maintenance line item because there's the elimination of some one-time expenses. We did some
Safety railing.
safety railing and one other project that was in that line item.
Stormwater pond.
And the stormwater pond.
At the transfer station.
At the transfer station. Those are projects which you do once. You don't keep something in the budget a second time if you've already completed it. So we've taken those away. And then the other large item is the elimination of the savings placeholder. This is a work in progress. I will let Becky speak at this point to sort of where we are and where we aren't regarding the 4 10-hour days. And we have a plan sort of collaboratively between sanitation and finance moving forward to continue the evaluation.
Well, I know the question that you all may have wanted to ask was how are 4 10-hour days going? Well, they're going really well.
We would have never thought.
We have not heard one thing.
No, thank you for that. I appreciate that. They've gone really well. It was a big change for our department. It's been a positive change as far as efficiency. We are still looking at this first year. If you'll remember, we were working through those changes about this time last year, if not a little later in the year. So we want to ask that, we want to say on the surface and from every indication, it's been successful change, but we want to make sure that we give you accurate numbers. We want to see a full year because we do still have some holidays left. We do still have some just different weather events. Saw a little snow today and that type of thing. Nothing to panic about, but if we have some changes that we're not aware of or we don't expect, we would like the opportunity to take a look at that and give you an accurate number on the front end. I will tell you that savings placeholder is something that I'll remind you that we use that as a placeholder to say that's what we would expect our savings to be this year, based on what we presented when we requested to make the change to a 4-10-hour workday.
So, Eric, that's, is there such, is that a real number? I mean, because when we discussed this, we were looking at the savings being savings projected over a period of time based upon the fact that 2 years from now, you might not have to add personnel based,
Right.
but we were not getting rid of any personnel. So that all the costs and everything were the same for going to what we were going. But over the next year, the next year, the next year was when we expected to see the savings. Is that 379? Is that?
We did anticipate some savings with fuel and
What
wear and tear
I'm
because we
sorry,
were bringing
that is
back
correct. That is
more
correct.
full trucks than coming back with
Yes.
partially full trucks. That was part of the idea of optimizing the routes under this structure. So it was sort of our estimate of what we thought we could achieve over time, and knowing there need to be some
Is this year?
learning of how it was gonna work for
Well,
us.
did you add that $1.50 that we added to the bill?
That's all part of your revenue structure.
That's
yes.
all
ma'am.
in that figure right there, that 379?
It's in the, actually in the
savings.
revenue.
That's in your revenue side. This is a
These are just-
projected, estimated kind of efficiency that we would realize over time.
Is 379 year one savings?
Well, that's what we had said. When we presented and requested that we make the change to 4 10-hour days, we had a dollar amount, and we said we would project, or we would expect to be able to save at least $379,000 if we make this change.
Are we on track for that?
Well,
Russ?
it's hard to say halfway through the year. You know, we
I mean,
started,
that's a nice amount.
the week after the 4th of July, and if I remember right, this is one of the departments, we only had 5 months of hard numbers when we did the extrapolations
When you
on
did
that.
this right here.
Okay.
The reason that we pointed this out is this was a plug number. We didn't know where the savings would be precisely.
Yeah.
So we put this artificial savings number in there. That's going away for FY16.
We will
Yeah.
budget that way.
But you will see savings in the individual line items. That's where they will go.
Okay.
The problem is they'll be masked to some extent by some of the increases from volume. So you won't be able to see them directly. And what Becky plans to do, if I'm overstepping my bounds here, is to come back at the end of one full year and
Yeah.
give you a complete report, much as we did with recycling. And give you, when we've got a full year of numbers, to be able to tell you the full scope of that. And even then, we won't get all the savings in this first year, as you alluded to. I mean, it's just because some of this is the wear and tear on the equipment. I mean, you're gonna be able to put off replacing equipment if they're doing fewer miles for an extra year. So it may be the 3rd or 4th or 5th year before you see that
You've
savings.
got more operational data that it'll land in normal line items. That's kind of the best way to say it. And this has kind of been our pattern. We estimate a savings and how it's going to work. We don't always know exactly, once we get into the reality of it, where those savings and pieces will fall, but we want to have an accountability back to what we said we were going to do. That's why we put that in here. We did a similar thing when we went to the arrangement with Bi-County for hauling and landfilling. We had some estimates, we had an idea, we tried to be conservative, but we put it in there, and then we had the real experience that we've had over the last 2 or 3 years. Same like Russ said with the blue bag and the curbside recycling. So that's what this is. Next year transition, this new budget will transition into more just, that's how we operate. We weren't sure how all the pieces would come together,
And-
but we wanted to do what we said we were going to achieve in terms of a savings.
And when will we get to the place where it's self-supporting and we don't have to do anything?
2015.
We hope,
You're
yeah.
in it. You're living it
We're in
right
it
now.
now?
Yeah.
And we're not gonna have to put any money into it?
No.
That's
You won't, no, that's not.
blank.
You won't take any
General
out of
fund.
the
Well, that's what
General fund
I
money.
mean, that's what I mean. That's
One of the things that Michael showed you on that
We'll be
first
putting
page,
money into
I was
it.
just that excited.
you do have a positive fund balance. You're covering it. You're hopefully going to add a little bit to it this year. The way next year's projected out, at least as we have it right now, you'll use a little bit of that fund balance, not a lot, but a little bit of that, and you'll still have, at the end of the year, around $500,000 in your fund balance for the sanitation fund. So you are there now. Do you want me to get to the big part?
Yeah.
We're not projecting any adjustment in fee either. So we think next year we can operate, maintain it as a self-supporting fund, no general fund subsidy, and no need to increase the residential fee either.
Okay.
So that, again, as Michael and Russ have both said, it's early. That's what we think, that's what we project, that's what we're gonna work hard towards achieving. But one of the other things that I warned you about last year when we got into the world of being truly self-supporting in this function is we're gonna need to always look at fee. We're gonna need to get comfortable with regular reevaluation and probably more regular but small tweaks to that fee so that we stay balanced and keep it as a self-supporting fund.
Yeah, it's not a $10 increase in year 9.
No.
Yeah, because we went 4 years
Because it
between
didn't make it year
increases
one
last
today.
time.
Oh,
And
and-
we did that as a part of getting to self-sufficiency. We did a number of other things that helped on the expense control side, but we're just gonna need to re-examine it every year and decide if the existing fee covers our costs or not.
So what kind of fund balance are we, and want to maintain? Do we want to maintain a fund balance?
Well, my preference is 0, but our friends at the
So-
state think that we need to keep about the amount that we
That's what I'm
have.
saying, yeah. Well, we want to make sure the state is happy.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll say that my team has worked really hard to save money where they could, to use what we have, the resources we have, and I would say hats off to them, because they've done.
Well, I've heard lots of compliments about the projects and the pickups and all they've not seen any problems with it, and the citizens, so that's good. It's always good to hear
Well, that's
good
always good.
reports from them.
And our goal was, if you'll remember, we didn't have the frustration didn't lie in my day change. The frustration was in primarily you're coming at a different time of day.
Yeah.
For some, and so I said I hoped we could set our clocks. You could set your clocks by us at some point in the near future, and maybe we've reached that.
Yeah. Good job, guys.
Thank you. This is actually our program enhancement requests. This is the section that Lisa gave you in a little bit different format. I would ask you to look at, what I've done is just given you the overall dollar amounts for each of those categories, and I would ask you to look at page 1 of this packet, which is the summary. So what I've done is, this is a list of our 23 program enhancement requests, and I'm just going to summarize them and just point out certain ones in the list. I'm sure you're also looking at the first one, which is a reclassification, and it's actually a negative number. So let me take just a second to explain that. We have had a drop-off site attendant position that is either a drop-off site attendant or a household hazardous waste drop-off site attendant. It's kind of been again, another balancing act of will we or won't we plan to have or be able to have the household hazardous waste facility. Now that we know that it's way above budget, we don't expect to follow through with that project, we're to the point of saying, okay, we need a drop-off site attendant who is familiar with hazardous waste, but we will not have necessarily a facility. So all of this time that we've had the BOPA drop-off, we have had folks fill in as needed. And the one person that's filled in the most, who is filling in now, is our facilities maintenance worker. So he would catch himself needing to go fix a faucet here or replace a bulb there, but then he would primarily be in the BOPA work area as the drop-off site attendant. So what we've done is, in talking with Brad Wilson, our facilities manager, I requested that we have someone actually come in and contract the cleaning portion of what our facilities maintenance worker has done, and reassign the facilities maintenance worker to our vacant drop-off site attendant position. And that would provide us the opportunity to save right at $20,000. So it's a shift from one position to another that's the same pay grade, and then we won't have a facilities maintenance worker. That person won't be displaced. That person will be in the position the job they've been doing
The biggest
primarily.
portion of the time.
Yes, sir.
So the household waste, when you're talking about that, that's when you drive around, you drop off, and there's the oil, and there's the batteries, and there's the TV screens and all.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that person there has not been a full-time person.
Well, we've not, it's staffed full-time, but it hasn't been an assigned the same person.
Full-time
We've-
person.
We've had folks assigned to it for a month or two here and there, folks assigned to it for 6 months at a time, but primarily the facilities maintenance worker, because there wasn't something immediate to be done right now, has ended up there.
Okay.
So who's gonna do the maintenance again?
We're actually gonna contract out the cleaning function of what he's done and what he does.
Is that cost there?
It's the net, if you'll look
You've
at
got an
the,
increase in the contract
okay.
expense.
the expenses is the 20,000. And so the net is the savings of
Okay.
20,000. The only other personnel request we have is the customer service technician. And several years ago, we had what was called a solid waste technician. And basically, that's the person that goes out and repairs rollout containers, sets new rollout containers, helps to maintain the container numbers in our billing system. And we had reclassified that position once we didn't see the growth that we've seen most recently. Once that new homes were not being built, a lot of folks were moving into already existing homes here. Well, now that we're seeing a lot of the building, we can see a great need for a full-time person that would actually be out setting the containers and greeting the new customers, providing customer service packets and that kind of thing for those people. So that's essentially what we're asking for there. The other things I'll point out that are a little bit different, the picture on the screen is actually a front-end load collection truck with what we call a Corrado can. And if you'll notice in that picture, the Corrado can is attached to the forks. It's not permanently attached. Basically, it's got the sleeves on the sides, just like a dumpster. The Corrado can is an attachment for a front-end loader. So the forks go into the sleeves, and there's a side loader arm type piece on the side that we would be able to actually empty rollout containers with if we needed an alternative. What we're asking for is an additional front-end loader and then this option as well, so that we would have a backup as needed in the event we had equipment that was out of service.
Almost like worst case scenario, 3 side loaders go down, you'll have this truck in place, you can put it on the street and collect garbage residential.
So we could do either.
How many of those do you need?
We're just asking for one.
We're just asking for
How much is it?
315,000.
Oh,
All righty.
These aren't cheap.
it's a lot.
I was thinking about buying one. I thought they were so cute.
Well, it could do double work. Yeah,
Well,
multifunctional.
and it can be.
This is the truck with the attachment.
This is the truck with the attachment.
Oh,
And the
it's not just an
attachment,
attachment.
no, the attachment is,
Something separate.
the attachment is 28,000.
Well, it's
And
still-
it's something that we can leave at the truck shed if we want, to use the front end loader as we normally do, but then we also have this unit as a backup unit. The replacement automated side load truck is a truck that has, and I'll speak to you about mileage and hours. It has 48,000 miles on it, so you look at me and go, what? But it has 9,037 hours on it. Understanding that right at 10,000 is 10,000 hours on an engine or per unit. It's when you start to see a decrease in the value and you start to see a lot of the mechanical issues on a piece of heavy equipment or a large truck. So we're asking to replace that truck, but what our plan would be is to put this truck in the backup as a spare if needed, and then to sell this truck in about 12 to 18 months as we start to see it get close to 10,000 hours and as we start to see mechanical failure in this truck. The BOPA drop-off facility, which is number 6, would be an alternative to our hazardous waste facility. We have We've started out with our BOPA drop-off in 2 of our truck sheds. We've kind of continued to grow, and as the volume has increased, we've grown a little more. So now we've taken over 6 bays of our truck shed where we typically park our collection trucks. So we would like to ask for that money to actually build a smaller facility than what we expected.
Where would you
So,
put that?
yeah, what would that,
You know,
I'm sorry?
where would you put this?
The plan, we would hope to put it in the front field that's adjacent to our main office building.
Okay,
We have to look closely at what that design would be.
because it's and only on the first trip, it's a little confusing to go in and round and
It is.
arrow and back and back over here and then back out this way to get back out to it, so.
Yeah.
Help control the traffic too. The
Oh, yeah.
safety issues that we
Well,
have
and-
with big trucks and small cars, it's not a good combination.
Yeah.
Especially when people aren't sure where they're going.
oh, yeah.
I'm just proud our folks watch out for it. The number 7 is just to replace 2 of our 8-yard mini pack trucks with a 20-yard rear load. That's just a larger truck for more capacity. Item 8 and 9 are pickup trucks with inserts. Those are the trucks we would use for customer service, and they would have multi-use as far as our access.
Do you just bid the pickup truck, it doesn't matter you whether it's a Dodge Chevrolet or GMC or Ford or?
We work with our purchasing department, and usually those are on state.
We have a
State
state
bid.
contract. we also talk about.
So get a good price.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The other picture I want to show you is further down on the list. This is the rollout container cart blaster. Right now, we have several containers you all will see at the fair or at the downtown events. And we have folks that actually pay us for special events as far as containers, truck people to come in and, you know, family day at Nissan, that type of event. We're actually just washing these containers out for now. We get just a regular soap and wash those out. This is a contraption that's actually made for that purpose, so that it's got the high pressure wash. The can is turned upside down so it doesn't come back out onto someone. This is a request that would be something that we would actually have at our facility on Century Court.
So you could wash all of the containers?
Yes, sir. And they
You would have
actually-
time, but that
Well,
would,
we could.
but you,
Add-on service.
yeah.
Add-on
Well,
service.
some places have, they do have pickup trucks with these machines on the back of them that people actually use, that have a water tank in the bed of the truck, and they actually go out and provide that service in certain areas on certain days for a price, for a fee.
Yeah, like a certain homeowner association may want that
Well,
service.
it's like watering the baskets on the street.
Smell. Pretty much, go around washing cans.
Just wash it, yeah.
It's just like a trash truck. It's got an arm that's similar to what we use for trash, and it picks the cart up and sticks it in a bin in the back of the truck, and high-pressure
It's
jets
got
wash it inside and out and sets it back down.
Sets it back down.
It's like a car wash.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, we'll do it.
So,
I like that.
and, well, it's interesting, and, you know, we'll continue to look for things like that can make our job, that can allow us to be more efficient and make the job make more sense for folks. The other things are just further down the list, professional development. The accreditation field trip, which is item number 21, is a trip to Bowling Green, Kentucky, just a couple of days. We are actually hoping to start looking into accreditation. Talked with the other public works departments. It's through the American Public Works Association, and that's something that you'll hear more about as we go through the process. We've kind of scratched the surface, and we're learning more about what we would need to do to become accredited as the first accredited public works group in the state.
How many would you take with you? Is that just the registration fee is that's a very small amount.
Well, this is just to go up, spend a couple of days with the
yes.
folks that are actually there in the
They're an
Bowling Green
accredited-
sanitation. Yes, they're an accredited department, and they're the closest. So, and there's not a a city in Tennessee that's accredited as a public works agency.
And Becky, if I may, this is a perfect example actually of this system of trying to do level service versus base budgeting. So you're right, it's only $425, but it's something that wasn't in the budget last year. And so we wanted to draw that bright line to say if you wanted to add it, it's something new above and beyond. So it could be $600,000 or it could be as small as $425.
So I went back to the total page. I've just hit on the highlights. I would ask that, you know, if you all have any questions or any concerns about any of the items on there, please feel free to ask. The total of the 25 program enhancement requests is $2.5 million, right at $2.6 million. And that's, some of that includes, I mentioned a couple of truck, you know, the larger truck purchases or replacements, and then asphalt replacement, at Century Court as well, at the Century Court Municipal Services Complex.
One other thing, speaking of Century Court Complex, that debt service is in this budget, but we're not that far away from retiring that debt. About 3 years out, we will retire that debt, and that debt service will no longer be a part of this fund. So that's not that far away, and that's a good thing.
Would you do concrete instead of asphalt? I mean, that may just be wording because.
Well,
That's what you said.
go ahead. No,
Yeah.
please.
There's actually two projects. One is the asphalt and one is to concrete a portion of space behind the transfer station. Because as our volume has grown, we require more spare trailers for loading trash into. And what we've had experienced on the first few weeks I was here, early one morning, they show up at one of the loaded trailers that actually, the dollies had gone down into the ground about 3 feet and was verged of tipping over into the pond. And so we did a patch and put a little strip of concrete for the dollies of the trailers we do have, but we're gonna need more trailers, and we're gonna just make a whole concrete pad back there for trailers, basically. Secure them.
That'll take care of it.
Yes, ma'am.
I just know that pavement, unless somebody's more familiar with it than I am, it just doesn't hold up with the trucks that you've got. going
Not
in
heavy
and out of
traffic,
there.
you're right.
And that's a big part of that problem back there, because there are tight turns, twisting, a big heavy truck.
Your LED lighting, why is that an enhancement? I mean, do we not already have?
We don't have LED lights
we
right
just-
now. We have just the original lights in our transfer station as well as our truck sheds. And over time, I mean, you all are probably well aware that we have to start using compact fluorescent bulbs at home. You start to use
It's
different type of
upgrading.
bulb in a commercial facility as well. And this is just an upgrade. This is so that the bulbs don't cost more than the fixtures eventually.
Last longer.
And then we
Yes, ma'am.
Did LED lighting, we replaced it in Fourth Avenue garage to enhance that, and so it does help in some of
It
these
does
areas.
help.
And we keep looking for opportunities. Occasionally, there are grant opportunities that help us do some of that work, but that's what this would help us do.
And we tend to have a few little critters around our area in the mornings. So
No.
just a few. Do you all have any other questions for us?
Very good presentation.
Thank you,
Very,
thank
very
you.
much. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you all. Keep
all.
up the good work.
Thank you.
Take one and pass.
Thank you. Do I not have one of these?
We have fire.
This is something else.
We got
This
some
is-
detailed
something
fire
else.
presentation.
the full fire.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
She's good. Fire.
We can get another chair for the guys.
Yeah, I see two more. I see two more shirts.
We need at least one more up here, about two more. Yeah. Unless someone needs to leave and take care of a fire.
Yeah.
We need to have some backup.
Yeah. get to see the whole picture here.
That's it.
Time for the fire department.
You know, they clean up right
I
now,
know,
don't they?
this uniform thing is, well, wait till the next group comes.
I need a city administrator.
Yeah.
We can get you one.
We're gonna see who uniform looks the best.
That's right.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us, and we appreciate your attention to all the presentations today. I'm Rocky Garsrick, Chief of the Fire Department. This is my senior staff, Deputy Chief Andy Keene, Deputy Chief Todd Horton, and Deputy Chief Glenn Johnson. I'm going to take you through the first couple of slides very quickly, just for the brevity of this whole presentation and the other groups that have to go behind us. Quickly, we're going to outline our purpose for our department. We're going to look at our organizational chart, our base budget plan, as well as our personnel cost, our operational cost, and our capital cost, our program enhancements that we feel like we need for our organization to continue to provide the level of services that our citizens expect of us, and a brief summary of our overall budget presentation at the end. As you know, the purpose of our department really is we're dedicated our efforts to provide for the safety and the welfare of the public and the preservation of life, health, property, and the environmental, utilizing our tactics and strategies of prompt service, continual professional training, and outstanding teamwork. I would like to bring attention to the group that we've had a 6% increase in our call volume over last year, and that has continuously been building over the last 10 years. I know since I've been with the organization. A couple other goals. As you know, we broke ground on our fire station in West Haven. We plan to occupy that particular building in August of this year.
Good.
Also, tremendous effort from some city teams to get us in a temporary fire station 7 out at the Ag Center, and a collaborative effort with the county and the county mayor and his team to allow us to put a temporary facility out there which will serve the citizens of Ladd Park and Berry Farms until we can get a fixed facility out at that particular location. This is the first time I know in my tenure since I've been here as a fire chief that our response time, our average response time now is greater than 5 minutes. Now, we can equate that to several reasons. You could think about traffic roadways. We've had some major thoroughfares with issues due to a bridge being out, but that is something we certainly need to pay attention to. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Todd Horton, who's going to go through our org chart for you.
Chief, go.
Yes, sir.
The 5 minutes has increased, and that's just, that's every call, the amount of time that it took divided by the total number of calls that you made in the year. In other words, to get to the 5 minutes per call.
That would be a simple equation that you could work out
But it's
that way.
more
Yes, sir.
complex than that.
It is our average response time for all calls over a period of 1 year.
Okay.
Just from the time that we receive the call. That does not include the time that it takes to recognize the emergency, dial 911, communicate with our telecommunicators, and then from them to turn around and dispatch us for the call. If we add those times in, we're over 7 minutes from the time the emergency is discovered.
But you don't have any control over those 2 minutes.
That's correct.
The only ones you have is from the time that you get the call and bam, you're on the scene.
That's correct.
And that's gone up to 5 minutes. What was it year before last then? Do you remember?
We went up 12 seconds more than last
Okay.
year. So we're just over 5 minutes at this point.
Go ahead, Todd.
Okay. So our org chart, of course, is broken down into 3 divisions that are represented by the 3 deputy chiefs, the Division of Administration and Emergency Management, the Division of Assistant Chief of Fire Prevention, and then the Deputy Chief of Operations. And so Not much has changed since your last approval of this org chart, and it will continue that trend as we go into the next year. When we look at our, where's the machine that's getting this? That one? Okay. So when we look at our base budget request for personnel, last year, or the current year rather, our base budget request was $11,839,212, which included all wages and benefits. Our 2016 base budget request is increased to $12,521,000 and change. This is about a 5.8% increase, and this is primarily due to the fact that in the current budget year, we only funded the new hires for Fire Station 8 for 4 months. So those 12 people will now have to be funded for an additional 8 months, which equates to about $500,000 of this increase. Of course, there's some additional health care cost increase that Michael alluded to in the last presentation as well, and some overtime cost increases that we've incurred due to some of our unfunded positions, which we'll talk about. We have our program enhancements outline requests for 18 new full-time positions that we will speak on more specifically when we get into our program enhancements, but just to highlight 12 new personnel for Fire Station 7, 3 new battalion chiefs in suppression, 1 new physical manager in administration, and funding for the 2 previously unfunded firefighter positions. Bear with me, this little thing. Russ, can you move your head? No, I'm kidding. I wanted to highlight this slide to talk about our turnover rate experience that we happen in the fire department. If you look back to 2004 up to 2015, although the numbers vary, we average about 6 people that we turn over every year for a number of reasons. Some lose for better opportunities, some leave just to be back with family, some leave because they retire. There's a number of different reasons that people choose to leave the city, but it nevertheless affects our ability to provide a level of service.
But it does include retirees.
It does include retirees, yes, sir. And so when we talk about this turnover rate of an average 6 people per year, our hiring process takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months to replace those vacancies. So, for instance, we've already had 2 people leave since January 1st of this year, and another one who's tentatively announced his retirement for later this year. So those 2 people now will take us roughly 3 to 6 months in order to fill those vacancies, and that includes the time it takes them to go through training. So when we talk about funding of positions, it's a matter of making sure that we have enough people on hand to meet the daily demands that we have, as well as reducing our overtime cost or out-of-service costs for apparatus, but not being able to properly man them. So we'll talk about that more as we go on. The other thing that I think is important to highlight, which I didn't put in the slide, is light-duty assignments. We have a number of people, obviously, that go through. Some are injured on the job. Some are injured off the job and have to go through surgeries, and they're not able to return back to work with full authority to do the things that they need to do. So the city has the benefit of light duty assignments that help the employee recover while still getting good use out of the employee, and those are typically assigned to administration. We average 3 to 4 people year-round assigned to light duty for one reason or another. We presently have 3. We just released the 4th one back to full duty just last week. So coupled with our 6 people that are off and another 3 to 4 that are on light duty, we could be down 9 to 10 people at any given time throughout the year, which makes our personnel request more important for us as we go through the budget. So when we look at base budget request for operations, you'll see that our operations increase is $156,940 over the previous year. You'll notice there's a red note down there that an additional $24,822 will be added to expenses later in the budget process, and that is because I failed to include the operational costs for the new Fire Station 8 that'll be open in August. So even though I highlighted it there, I didn't put the numbers in, so that will show another increase. We also have lease payments that are coming due again this year, a $93,000 lease payment for a ladder truck that we will take delivery of in the first week in July. That's a replacement apparatus. And then, of course, as our people are our number one resource and asset, we want to continue offering our paramedic and EMT level of training for those who are interested. Currently, we have a $25,000 increase over last year. Our experience has shown that not all of those are able to get accepted into the class, and as it comes closer to the budget time, we will know that for sure, and we'll be able to reduce that amount if needed for those who did not get accepted into the class.
That lease truck is a new truck,
It is a replacement of an existing vehicle.
but it would be a brand-new one.
Yes,
Yep,
ma'am.
that's right.
Yes, ma'am. The truck itself is $798,000, so we only have $93,000 toward the lease of that, and other equipment is in that cost as well.
Again, when we say lease, it's really lease purchase. It's how
Okay,
we're
right.
spreading the cost of purchasing it out over time.
Then when we do that, Eric, thinking about how you make the payment, do they carry the note?
We've worked through banks to get a note at a very low interest rate and do that. Russ and his team have gone out sort of independently each year. We identify what's in the budget and we put a package out there and we get the best loan deal we can, if you will, from a bank and then bring that through to you to approve. And they're, how low are those rates? They're very, very
Well,
low.
last year, the rate was under 1% on a 3-year deal. So essentially, it's free money. You're just paying it off over 3 years or 4 budget years rather than paying it all up front. So
And
it seemed to make a lot of sense.
Would to me.
Yeah.
It has absolutely helped us recover from the downturn in the economy that happened some years ago where capital was basically frozen all across the city. This mechanism has allowed us to be able to recover a lot of that loss that we were not able to do at that time. So our base budget for capital, FY16 request of $102,300, which includes replacement vehicles for the fire chief, the deputy chief of operations, and the deputy chief of prevention. I'm not sure why they thought I wasn't important enough to get one.
You didn't get a truck this year.
I'm still in negotiations about that.
You get one next year.
We've got a really neat 10-speed for Todd.
Okay.
It's very fuel efficient.
This went real ugly real quick, so let's move on. So in our program enhancement request, you will see 17 enhancement requests before you. This is $3,083,000 in the general fund, with an additional $883 requested in the facilities tax fund. And so I'm going to break down and highlight just some of the more important ones and some of the more expensive ones with you. We're certainly free to talk about any of those that you would like to discuss. So temporary Fire Station 7, as you know, the board has graciously supported us in our efforts to put a temporary fire station, or to continue rather what the board supported back when the fatal traffic accident happened, because the Ag Center needed their space, of course, for the things that they do on a daily basis. We've been granted permission by the mayor and county government to relocate that temporary fire station to another piece of their property. It is well underway in construction. The trailer is up and in place. They are doing all the electrical hookups as we speak. The pole barn is ready to be scanned with the metal on the outside of it, and we certainly anticipate being in that building by the end of this month, which is our deadline to be able to move out of the Ag Center. So we're thankful, as the chief mentioned earlier, to Williamson County for their cooperation and to the board for their support of that particular station. So right now, as
Are we going to have a little grand opening? No.
we will do whatever you will.
It'll be a temporary ceremony, dude.
It's a really good shift change, 6 in the morning.
Go ahead.
So as you know, when we put the temporary fire station in place, it was a means to get something in place immediately to protect the citizens who went from a 12-minute response time to what would have been over a 30-minute response time because of the collapse of the bridges. So it was imperative that we do something for that part of our community to give them service. So we did a redistribution of existing personnel and apparatus from Station 5 to that location. obviously, when we did that, we took away from service that was already being provided at a certain level to the rest of the city. So our budget in this particular year requests that we go ahead and move forward with the funding of the apparatus for that, so that we can relocate the existing apparatus back to its original station, and to provide 12 new personnel to fund that station. It's really no different than opening up any other station. Additional stations require additional manpower. And as you can see with our 400 increase in call volume this year, that trend will continue. It will not go down. We have places like Ovations and Franklin Park and other major developments that are coming in. And so our call volume will continue to rise. We also have a number of additional assisted living facilities, which increase our call volume as well. And anytime we talk about high-rise buildings, we talk about longer time on the scene, because instead of just going into a residence now, we have to go into a building, wait on an elevator, go up to a certain floor, so it extends and prolongs our time on the incident scene as well as more of the high-rise buildings come in. So all of that, coupled with our inability now to distribute our resources, our present resources like we once did, create extensive response times. And that's another reason our response times continually increase. We have a dynamic response model in the fire department where when a station empties itself out for a call, we automatically begin moving other pieces of apparatus strategically throughout the city so that the next call doesn't have an extended delay response time. And by relocating existing resources, we've taken a key component of that response system out. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes.
You kind of moved that.
Yes, ma'am. We're moving 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it's imperative. We know that, for instance, brain cells start to die in 4 minutes without oxygen. And so we don't find it acceptable just to say, well, just because they're out, we're going to sleep through the night and let that place go uncovered. We're up and we're moving, and we're dividing ourselves between two response boundaries, if that's what it takes, in order to at least shorten that response time by 2 or 3 minutes in most cases. So and it's imperative that we fund these positions in order to be able to continue that distribution model and provide that level of service. And our intent is that as our call volume continues to go up, we can still bring this response time down by adequately funding our department with adequate staff and resources.
Todd, if you get what you're asking for this temporary station, when we get the permanent station, will they just move into the permanent?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
won't have to go and hire
No additional.
another whole set of people.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, there would be no additional cost to move into the new station.
Okay.
From an apparatus and personnel point of view, obviously, we would have furnishings that still have to
Sure,
go in the
yeah.
new station. So the personnel for the 12 new hires is $766,000. Our present temporary fire station, we expect it to have an operational cost of less than $10,000 just to provide the utilities and other things that it needs. And of course, we're asking for the apparatus for that station, which would be an engine at a cost of $552,000, including the equipment. And that's money, again, that we're going to spend when the new station opens. It is a facilities tax item for the apparatus and its equipment.
Todd, what's the lead time on that apparatus? We ordered it.
Apparatus, if we ordered it today, it would be a year before we received it.
Well, what are you going to do? until
Well, right now, we would be using a reserve apparatus.
So if
We have two
you could
reserve.
staff it and use a reserve apparatus until the new equipment gets
Oh.
there. That's part of the proposal.
Right. And our two reserve apparatus are, even though I call them reserve, they're there to go in service when a mainline truck has to go to the shop for repairs or whatever else. Those do stay in service probably 75% of their time. So we would still have a detraction in our services, but nevertheless, we could effectively do it with the one reserve.
So they don't stay in reserve much then?
Not much at all, no, sir. We have a fleet of 12 apparatus and 2 reserves, so there's always something that is due for some kind of maintenance or some other mechanical issue that has to be resolved. Our next that I want to highlight is our 3 battalion chief positions. Presently, the city is staffed with 3 battalion chiefs. As you know, they work every 24 hours and off 48 hours. So there's a battalion chief on A shift, B shift, and C shift. And that battalion chief presently, because we have 7 stations in place, he has 7 direct reports and 48 personnel that he's responsible for overall. When we open up Station 8, that will go to 8 direct reports and over 71 people that one person is responsible for each of those 3 days. So we believe that the span of control for that one individual is way exceeding what is recommended by any standard. It's recommended no more than 3 to 7, with 5 being optimal. And we have had this, of course, on our planning board for when Fire Station 8 opened up, then that's when we would make our request for the 3 additional battalion chiefs. So basically, we would split the city in half, and one battalion chief, for instance, may hold the west side, and one may hold the east or north and south, and each would be responsible for 4 stations and the manpower that would be associated with that. And so this budget figure not only involves the promotion of those people to battalion chief, but it would also provide for the promotional opportunities of firefighters going to engineers and engineers going to lieutenants, and of course the 3 new people that would fill the positions that were created. It would also require a new vehicle for them, which is the cost of $62,500. That is a facilities tax cost for the vehicle. Our next request, you may recall the police department earlier this year asked for a physical manager position, and we were so excited that they got it, we decided we would ask for our own. That wouldn't be the pitch that I would normally come with, but I thought it was time for a little humor.
And they are in the crowd.
The fire department budget, base budget is $14 million, and as you can see and will see, that figure tends to go up to $15 million before long. And it is very much time for someone to directly be responsible for nothing but the budget. Yeah. If we look at Fire Station 7 and Fire Station 8 and the equipment that goes on, and between now and the end of this budget year, that's about $1 million worth of equipment and furnishings that have to be purchased. And it really needs somebody that's constantly dedicated to doing nothing but managing the budget process as well as the expenditure process. And so that we can be sure that we're working as closely with the purchasing department that we can to maximize the savings that we can. We have stuff scattered throughout the budget in numerous locations. We have different divisions that are responsible for different areas, and we need a person who can focus and dedicate their efforts totally to the budget process. And we believe that this position would pay for itself in savings that it can find and reap through this consolidated effort of just managing all that we do in our expenditure process. As I mentioned, during the downturn in the economy, you're very familiar with that the city chose to, for necessary reasons, as positions became vacant, to leave them unfunded. The fire department, it began with 5 unfunded positions, and a couple of years ago, we were fortunate enough to get back 3 of those unfunded positions, and we have 2 that remain. And because of the earlier things that I talked about with our 6 people on average that we lose per year and the 3 to 4 people that we have on light duty, it's really imperative for us, we believe, to have those 2 positions funded to put us back at our authorized strength. So we're requesting those 2 positions at a cost of $121,000.
Todd, let me ask before you. In all of this right here, if I go back to the organizational chart, Battalion Chief 3, we're asking for 6. 3 and 3 additional.
Yes, sir.
Captains are 14. Any additional captains?
No, sir.
So the only thing in the organizational chart other than the additional personnel that's not in here is the 3 battalion chiefs. In other words, firefighter 93, engineer 30, lieutenant 16, captain 14. Those numbers would stay the same? Are they as this right here? Or or do they not include the new fire station and the new temporary fire station? Are those numbers not included in this?
The org chart is only reflective of what we presently do, with one exception, and that is it already has the 12 new people for Fire Station 8 because they are budgeted in this budget year.
Yeah. Okay.
So it does not reflect the 12 new for Station 7, the 3 additional battalion chiefs or the 2 unfunded positions that we are asking for.
As a internal budgetary policy for everything that you see in a PowerPoint, the organizational charts that are shown are the ones that you have most recently approved. So therefore, they are reflective of authorized positions in the current
Your
budget
existing
only.
budget.
The
Okay.
existing budget.
And let me chime in on one thing that will help, or you'll see across all budgets. And Todd referenced the unfunded positions. The last several years, you've seen us talk about vacancies and unfunded positions. We're sort of shifting that discussion in this budget, because there's a number of positions that we have remained unfilled for 4, 5, 6 years. And as we look at this,